Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm super excited to be sharing ILNP's first collection of the spring season called Candy Coated. This is a 6-piece collection, obviously inspired by candies, so we have lots of sparkly, glistening shades that look like they are covered in sugar. So as always, I will save more of my thoughts for the end after some comparisons. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade in the collection is Gummy Bear, and this is described as a vibrant pink holographic jelly. Now, I know you are probably immediately thinking of how this compares to Misbehaving, and you already know I will be showing that later. But as far as Gummy Bear is concerned, it is absolutely perfect. I mean, are we surprised that I absolutely love this shade? It had a really nice formula that was super squishy, not the most even on the first coat, which again, I'm sure the paddle brushes would help with that, but it did even out on 2 coats for me. There was still a bit of squishiness because it is a jelly base, so I could still see some nail line, but it didn't bother me enough to do a 3rd coat for this. And here is the full hand swatch worn in 2 coats with a glossy top coat, and I just absolutely love how this looks. It is just so bright and juicy and sparkly. Even though I didn't have direct sunlight for that clip, you can still tell it has this really dainty holographic twinkle. It is just so yummy. The next polish we have is Sweet Tooth, and this is described as a cotton candy pink shimmer. This is basically the pink version of Fairy Dust, so you know that this is my favorite. It is absolutely beautiful, just like Fairy Dust and Bluebell and any other polish that has this kind of formula. It just applied so smoothly, so evenly. So if you wanted, you could wear it in 1 coat or maybe layer it as a topper, but I decided to just build it up in 2 coats, and I just stopped here again because I found the coverage was good enough for me. You could do a 3rd coat if you wanted even more full coverage or to build up that pink base a little bit more, but I think in just 2 coats you can definitely tell that pink base is there, and it is just so beautiful. It's a little bit on the warmer side, which provides that perfect complementary color for that fiery fairy dust kind of shimmer. It just looks so stunning in direct sunlight, especially even in certain angles. When you see that shift to yellow, it kind of gave me like pink lemonade vibes. So yeah, no surprise, I absolutely adore this one. Even in low lighting, that shimmer just glows. Next up we have Peach Ring, and this is described as a soft orange shimmer, and this is another favorite from this collection. I just went through all of my orange nail polishes in my collection, sorting through the ones that I wear a lot and I don't wear, and I can safely say that Peach Ring is now in the top 10 of my favorites. It might not look super impressive on the first coat because it definitely is very sheer, but this builds up so beautifully. I loved how strong that orange shimmer is. I mean, you could see how strong it was just on the first coat alone, so it just really intensifies the more coats that you do. I think it can be passable on 2 coats, but it definitely is more sheer than Sweet Tooth or Gummy Bear, so I did end up showing a 3rd coat for this one as well, which I would say is my preference. But for my full hand swatch here, I did just do 2 coats, and again, I think it still looks really good. I might just be forgiving because I love the color so much, especially when you see it at this certain angle where the shimmer pulls yellow and it's just so peachy. It's literally a peach ring on your nails. And similar to Sweet Tooth, the shimmer in this one really shines even in lower lighting. The next polish we have is Rock Candy, and this is a vibrant teal holographic magnetic. If you know me and my taste, you know that I also really love this one. I generally love ILNP magnetics because they are just so freaking beautiful. They have such flawless coverage where they are a little bit on that jelly squishy side, but they build up so nicely in just 2 coats. It magnetizes so beautifully with the cat eye effect, but But of course, I am also going to show this with the velvet effect using one of their horseshoe magnets, which by the way, I'm so sorry that the colorful fun magnets were only prototypes, so you can only buy the black ones. But either way, the horseshoe magnet is such a game changer when it comes to doing velvet nails. It is just so easy, and I feel like in this polish specifically, it just made it so glassy looking. I just could not stop staring at this one. Unfortunately, I didn't have direct sunlight for this clip, but I still wanted to show this in 2 coats with the velvet effect on my middle and ring finger and the cat eye effect on my pointer and pinky. So even though you can't see the gorgeous holographic sparkle like in the other polishes, you can still tell it is super beautiful. Just the magnetic effect alone is so stunning, and I love the color too. Next up we have Sugar Cube, and this is a sheer lilac shimmer, and boy, is it sheer. I was honestly kind of surprised to see how sheer this was on the first coat, where you barely get a hint of that lilac kind of base color, but it does provide like a nice subtle wash of color if that's what you're going for, and obviously it has that beautiful silvery kind of shimmer that sort of gives it like this wet look, or I guess more accurately, it just looks like these little sugar crystals all over your nails, so it can look nice, you know, depending on what you're going for. The second coat definitely does help with increasing some of that color and coverage, but I definitely preferred how this looked on 3 coats just because it intensifies that beautiful pale lilac color even more. It's just so soft and delicate and kind of giving fairy vibes. And even though this one was just described as a shimmer, it does have this beautiful holographic sparkle in here as well, so I wanted to show that off with this out of focus clip. And even though I just said that I preferred how this looked in 3 coats, I did just do 2 coats for my full hand swatch here just to keep it the same across the full collection. So again, you definitely are going to see the most nail line with this shade out of the full collection, but I think it still looks pretty. It's definitely very passable and wearable. I honestly think that a lot of the visible nail line is covered up by all of the shimmer, especially in like lower lighting where it's more diffused and it makes that shimmer glow. So yeah, this was definitely a very pretty shade. And rounding out the collection, we have Jellybean, which is a candy green holographic jelly. So this is basically the same kind of formula as Gummy Bear, which was the hot pink. I would say it applied the same way as well, where it had pretty decent coverage on the first coat. Maybe not the most even, but not the worst I've seen either. It's also just very highly pigmented, so it just builds up really beautifully as well in just 2 coats alone, or again, you can do 3 if you want even more coverage. As I'm sure many of you know, I love this jelly hollow flaky finish from ILNP, and this was definitely such a fun color. I mean, it is so perfect for the candy theme. I just don't know if I love it, you know? I'm admittedly not the biggest fan of Kelly greens. They can sometimes be a little hit or miss for me. So as a full hand manicure, I wasn't really in love with this, but I do think it's still a fun shade of green. And here is the collage of my full hand swatches in direct sunlight. I just cannot get over how perfect these shades are. They are so fun and bright and just so colorful, especially compared to ILNP's previous spring releases. Like their first spring release is always on the more subtle pastel side, so this was really fun. Now getting into comparisons, we're starting with Gummy Bear, and I did want to quickly show this next to Playdate, which is another sort of jelly, hollow flaky polish, but that one's a lot more sheer, and I think a lot more packed with those hollow flakies. And here it is next to Petals from the Wildflowers collection last year. That one's more of like this shimmer type of formula, so it is a hot pink, but very different. And the moment you've been waiting for, here it is next to Misbehaving, which is definitely very close. Like they have the same kind of finish, but the color is a little off. And I figured I could also show this next to Holo Taco's Life in Plastic because it's another hot pink jelly, but this one has a hollow micro glitter instead of a hollow flaky. So definitely a very minimal difference, and even color wise, I would say that Holo Taco is a little bit closer to Gummy Bear, where they're on the slightly cool cooler side, like almost magenta. So if you want a warmer pink, I would go with Misbehaving. Then for Sweet Tooth, I wanted to quickly show this next to Pixie Party, which was from the Fairy Forest collection. That's another pink shimmer, but that one's lighter, a bit more cool toned with like a greenish blue shimmer. I would say that Sweet Tooth is a little bit closer to Pink Flamingo because that one's a warmer pink, but almost on the corally side, but that one also has a green shimmer, so definitely not a dupe. And then I thought I could try to recreate Sweet Tooth by using Pink Slush as the base because that's like a warm pink base color, and then layering Fairy Dust on top of that, since Fairy Dust and Sweet Tooth have the same exact fiery shimmer that goes from orange to yellow and the holographic sparkles. So this was kind of close. I was not expecting it to work out as well. Obviously, because Fairy Dust is purple, it does make it a little bit darker than Sweet Tooth, but I feel like this is a pretty good job for like recreating it. And I tried to even layer it over Pixel Pink, which I think the base color is a little bit more similar to Sweet Tooth, but that one's just a little bit too intense maybe. Next for Peach Ring, I knew I wanted to see this next to Euphoria, which is another one of those hollow, jelly, flaky type of polishes, so it's not a shimmer, and I figured again I could also show this next to Holo Taco's Box Office Bomb from that retro anniversary collection. I thought the shade of orange was a little bit more similar to Peach Ring than Euphoria was, but even still on the nail, you can just tell them apart so easily, so I definitely would not call these dupes. I did also want to quickly show this next to Mooncat's Fleur Sauvage from the Baroque collection because that was described as an orangey shimmer, but you can see how warm that is. I thought something a little bit closer maybe was Cirque's Fandango, which has this beautiful golden shimmer. It kind of has this peachy quality to it, but again, that's a little bit too coral. So I think the closer shades in my collection were Mooncat's Flight of the Monarchs, which I know has a purple base, but the orange yellowy shimmer in this is just so strong, it overpowers the base color. But I did also want to show this next to Cracked Polish's Push and Pop from the Artificial Flavors collection because it's just another monochromatic orange shimmer, but that's missing the holographic sparkle. But aside from that, I would say color-wise, it definitely is closer to Peach Ring than Flight of the Monarchs because obviously in some lighting you can see that purplish base color. But yeah, I still wouldn't call Push and Pop a dupe. Moving on to Rock Candy, I knew I had to show this next to Flashing Lights from last year's Electric Summer collection. It's another gorgeous blue magnetic, but that one has this orange shimmer. So I did also want to see this next to 0 Degrees, which is another beautiful blue magnetic, which is monochromatic, but that one is definitely more of like a true blue, like maybe a little bit cerulean or something. And Flashing Lights is a little bit lighter, maybe more turquoise. Rock Candy is definitely like a very true teal, so I figured I could also show this next to Holo Taco's Teal with it, which is from the David's Tea collaboration last month. Even though that one is like a shimmer micro metallic formula and not a magnetic, they did kind of look similar on the nail, though I will say that Holo Taco was a little bit more green as well. It's just hard to pick up on camera, but they definitely were the closest that I had to dupes. But I still did also want to show Rock Candy next to Blowing Bubbles because I feel like seeing it unmagnetized, it just reminded me of Blowing Bubbles so much, even though the shade of blue is totally different. And here it is also next to Holo Taco's Teal No Lies, which is the teal metallic kind of formula, because again, just seeing it unmagnetized, it just reminded me of that finish, but the color is just totally off. Then for Sugar Cube, I have a couple of bottle comparisons, starting with Smitten, which my bottle is tarnished at this point. The original color, I would say, is a little bit closer to Sugar Cube though. And here it is next to Downtown, which is this beautiful light purple with a yellow shimmer, but the purple is a little bit more blue toned. I think a slightly closer purple is Love Spell from the Eternal collection last winter. It also has this like silvery metallic kind of look to it, which I feel like kind of matched Sugar Cube in a way, but I also did want to show this next to Lily from the Velvet collection last spring, which is another super light, icy kind of purple with this silvery white magnetic shimmer. So they have similar descriptions, but on the nail, they don't really look that similar. Like maybe Lily is the closest, but it's also just more pigmented than Sugar Cube. So even though I knew it wasn't going to be an exact dupe because Fairy Dust just has this super fiery orange shimmer, I did think it had the closest like base color, but again, Sugar Cube is just super sheer. This is 2 coats each and you just barely get like that wash of color compared to Fairy Dust. So if you do a 3rd coat of Sugar Cube compared to 2 coats of Fairy Dust, I would say it's closer, but definitely not an exact dupe. If anything, maybe Sugar Cube is like the cool toned version of Fairy Dust. And lastly, for Jellybean, I really don't have another ILNP green like this, so some of the closest ones that I had in my collection were Bottoms Up and Paradise, but they just are totally different finishes or just different shades of green entirely. Jellybean is pretty much like a very mid-toned, grassy Kelly green, so I'd say the closest shades in my collection are probably Cirque's Tsavorite, but I think color-wise, it immediately reminded me of KBShimmer's Pull It Together, which I recently got. So that one is a reflective glitter though. It's definitely not similar as far as the finish goes, but even on the nail, color wise, I would say you can easily tell them all apart, where Jellybean is almost like the most neon. So that wraps up ILNP's candy coated collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of this release because obviously I am loving it. I think it is just so fun and sweet. I love the brighter colors for spring and obviously love that they look like they are just sugar covered candies. I'm not so much of a sweet tooth, but I do prefer candy over chocolate. So these are just so up my alley. I know when they did first tease them though, I saw a lot of people kind of assuming we were gonna get more jellies, and I definitely would have loved to see that because as of now, we still have only gotten 4 true jelly polishes from the watercolor collection that launched last summer. And while obviously a couple of these polishes do have those like jelly bases, I still would have loved to see like a true jelly polish, at least one in this lineup. So hopefully we still will get some more true jellies, but obviously I am a sucker for these type of jelly flaky finishes, even if Gummy Bear is like very similar to Misbehaving. You guys know that I love pink, so it's just gonna be so freaking hard to choose between those two, but I still love the rest of the collection. I'm glad that we have some more polishes with that fairy dust kind of shimmer. I think it's especially beautiful to see them in these warmer colors. Well, I guess fairy dust is also like a warm toned purple, but I meant more specifically how in this collection they're in like a warmer toned pink base or that orange, which I absolutely love. So yeah, overall, I am a big fan of this release. So if you are too, these are going to be launching on Friday for a pre-order discount, which is available for 1 week. I would love to know if you're planning on picking up this whole collection or just a couple of the shades. Let me know how you feel down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!